So the app is called Little Eats, and the intent of the app is to help first-time parents get through the meal planning process and then also associated activities like grocery shopping. So being able to create a grocery list and go to the grocery store and make sure they have all the things they need to prepare some of the recipes that Ivy has on her blog.
Do you know how to write code?
No, not at all.
I'm Ivy. I'm a content creator and I'm in like the motherhood space. And once my son hit around 6 months, we started our own personal baby led weaning journey and I started sharing that. And with that, my Instagram really took off. A lot of moms really wanted ideas, really wanted help planning and just inspiration for recipes. So that is really where my Instagram took off and kind of what sparked our ideas for the app.
What does took off mean? How many followers do you have?
Now I have 150,000, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's incredible. And then
Yeah.
how'd you loop Scott into the mix from there?
Um, it was just a lot of brainstorming and talking through ideas for my website or my Instagram, and we were kind of just going back and forth thinking of like, okay, it'd be really helpful if we could somehow provide moms or parents with meal ideas. Like parents are struggling to feed their kids. Like all of a sudden you go from just feeding them milk to having to feed them 3 meals a day, sometimes snacks. And it's a huge jump and it's a struggle, especially for moms who already have so much on their mind, on their plate. So yeah, we were kind of spitballing that, and then I think you suggested that it could be an app, and that's kind of how the idea was born.
That's awesome. So then Scott was the one who built the app, right? Scott, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. So I'm Scott Davidson. Um, no technical background, but my background's in finance and accounting. I like to call myself the chief financial officer of her, like, social media presence. So yeah, we ideate and have been talking about this. And she failed to mention that she's been a content creator for, going on a decade or something like that. So she's had multiple blogs and a presence on TikTok and Instagram. But this trend towards baby-led weaning is a recent, happened this year where she really scaled her platform. So I had been working actually on a separate web application in another no-code tool, and it related more to content creators. But as we started to see this type of content resonate with her followers, we thought, oh, there's probably, another way that we can serve people beyond just linking them to her website.
Mm-hmm.
Because, the content, a lot of the content is there and they can go find it, but we thought packaging it up all
Yeah.
nicely and giving something for users on their phone to be able to like make their lives easier, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. And they're already like consuming your content probably on like mobile via TikTok and other stuff. So like going to another mobile presence is probably a good journey. So nice thinking there. And then tell me, like, what is baby led weaning? This is the first time I've heard of it. Maybe some people in the audience have never heard of it too, but I love the niche. Scott knows that I'm a big niches guy. And I think that's a really, really strong niche that those three keywords can really speak to probably a group of people who know what that is and are very passionate about it. So I'd love for you to tell us more about baby led weaning.
Yeah. I don't feel like I know like the exact, technical definition, but how people fed babies previously was a lot of purees and spoon feeding your baby, but it's really about letting your baby lead the way. And purees can be involved, but it's instead of feeding them, you're giving them the spoon and they're feeding themselves. Or it's giving them what you've made for dinner and just preparing it in a way that's safe for them to consume as early as usually like 6 months. Um, yeah, and it's just helping them be in touch with their own hunger, be in touch with their own fullness, be more included in the mealtime experience, and just really letting them lead the way.
I love that. And then like, I guess, how did you know that this was a type of, I guess, yeah, how did you know this was like a type of, I guess, technique or culture in the baby space? And like, are you known for this? Is this like the space you're known for? Like,
No.
tell me about that.
Um, I I was a nanny or babysitter or mother's helper, whatever you want to call it, for a very long time. I've always really loved kids and I've always known I've wanted to be a mom. And with that, I feel like I just like motherhood is almost a hobby for me. Before I even had kids, I was always reading things on Reddit or consuming that content on social media. So I just was aware that it was a thing. And when we started solids, like with our son, I was kind of open to doing either one. I didn't feel strongly that I had to do baby led weaning, but our son wanted to be in charge. He wanted to be holding the spoon or holding the food himself. So he kind of chose it for us and we went all in.
Very cool. Very cool. So yeah, let's, I guess, kind of move into the app. So you have the social presence. You had this idea that you wanted to monetize your 150,000 followers and figure out a way to offer them a product that, helps them, be great mothers and come up with recipe ideas. So I guess we'll transition more into the app. Scott, I'd love for you to tell us like the app name, the problem that you're solving, and like who your app is for and what your app does. So kind of just lay it on us. What's the purpose of the app?
Yeah. So the app is called Little Eats, and the intent of the app is to help first-time parents or just parents new to baby-led weaning um, get through the meal planning process, and then also associated activities like grocery shopping. So being able to create a grocery list and go to the grocery store and make sure they have all the things they need to prepare some of the recipes that Ivy has on her blog.
Cool. And then Ivy, like before we let you go, do you mind giving us links or how the audience can follow you on social media?
Sure. So I'm Messy Bun Motherhood. That's my handle for Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, my blog. Pretty much everything you can find me under Messy Bun Motherhood.
That's Messy Bun Motherhood.
Like a messy
Okay,
bun.
cool.
Yeah.
I will leave links to all of those in the description for sure. But Ivy, thanks for joining us. We'll
Thank
just
you so
work with
much.
Scott. Really, really
Okay.
appreciate you and congratulations on launching your app. I can't wait to see where you take it.
Thank you.
All right, Scott. So you're the man, behind the keyboard, building the app. I'd love for you to tell us, what your app is, the problem that you're solving, and a little bit of background about you. Like, do you know how to code, and kind of what gave you the confidence that you could build this thing?
Sure. So the app is called Little Eats, and the intent of the app is to help new parents or parents that are new to baby-led weaning along their journey, so they can create meal plans based on their baby's preferences, and they can create them from scratch, or they can automatically create them, and then also create grocery lists associated with the plans that they create. In terms of my background, no, my background's in finance and accounting. The only coding skills I have are, I know some SQL, but I don't know like JavaScript or Python or anything about computer science at all. Um, and I have used the no code tool Bubble in the past, but I had never used FlutterFlow, and I wasn't familiar with Firebase or any of the stack that we cover in DrainStaff.
Got you. And then prior to this, did you have any experience like building websites, using any drag and drop tools? Like, how much technical experience did you have, like building things on the internet?
I had built a Bubble app that was like about ready to launch. It was a design based tool, so we wanted to make sure that the design element was really locked down, and we kind of came up with this idea as that was getting wrapped up. But it had APIs and Stripe integrations, and there was some JSON and things like that. But it wasn't. It was Bubble. It was drag and drop. So
Nice. So you had some experience, right on.
a little bit. Yeah.
And then Scott, do you know how to write code?
No, not at all.
Like, I guess like if you were to say you had no experience, maybe a little bit of experience, or just not at all.
I would say I have maybe the tiniest bit of experience. I know some SQL, and I took a Python class at some point, but I haven't retained any of it.
I got you. Right on, right on. No, cool. Just wondering to know, because sometimes when people say they don't know how to code, sometimes something pops up where maybe they know a little bit of like Excel formulas, and that kind of counts because
I'm good at Excel. I'm really good at Excel, but I don't know if that counts.
I guess, yeah. Maybe from like the whole, just like logical standpoint of it. But no, cool. And then I guess like prior to joining Dreams into Apps, like how were you planning on building this app?
I was actually aware of you all when I was going through that process with the original app that I haven't finished yet, but it was a web app. So at the time, I was aware of y'all and I was aware of other courses. And ultimately, I just thought that Bubble at that time would be the right path for that particular app. So I was already familiar with you all prior to this app even being an idea in our heads. So when it came to the time when we came up with this and it was mobile, I knew that I was going to use FlutterFlow. I pretty much determined that from the get go just because of the native capabilities. Um, and then I didn't want to spend any time dealing with a third party developer, and I didn't want to do courses because, at least
I
from
guess like that's, did you ever try to hire a developer and talk to anybody?
for the Bubble app, I did. For the Bubble app, I did hire a developer who, strictly worked in Bubble, and that did help me when I ultimately took it over and refactored it a little bit because of a lot of the API integrations were set up. There was an API integration to Pinterest, so that was fairly complicated, and he set up all the passing of the tokens and things like that. But not for this particular app, no.
Got you. Got you. So you kind of knew that you were going to build it yourself. I guess like, why were you struggling? Like, and what made you be like, hey, I should consider joining Dreams into Apps? Not quite enroll yet, but what were you struggling with? Where were you when you were like, all right, let me book this discovery call and see what they have to offer?
Sure. I mean, it really came down to, was Bubble going to be able to solve my need? And from the research I had done, the answer was going to be no. I knew that there's a way to get it on the App Store, but I didn't even get too far down. I was just saying, okay, let's like execute on being able to get it into the App Store as quickly as possible. And then again, I was familiar with y'all and the concept of like getting it done in 12 weeks. I thought kind of having that a little bit of no code tooling skill set would have helped me in that regard. Um, and I knew I didn't know enough about, because I knew that from what I watched your content. That's how I found y'all on YouTube, and I knew that it was decoupled and the database wasn't built in, and once we got to the point where it was like, okay, there's going to be database integrations and all these other things, I didn't want to have to deal with figuring it out by myself.
I got you. Okay, cool. I mean, that makes sense. That's kind of where a lot of people are. And I can't even believe how many people have just gotten inspired off the YouTube videos. Um, but cool. And then like, honestly speaking, full honesty, like, were you skeptical at first, before joining? Like, did you really believe that like this would work? What we were promising would be true? What was going through your head, honestly speaking?
Um, so yeah, I thought we were going to be able to make substantial progress. I wasn't certain that we'd actually be able to launch in 12 weeks. I just didn't know how feasible that was. Um, and, I mean, there's plenty of case studies on the website, but I don't know, you never know. And it seemed like some of them may have been done like in person with your team in Atlanta, which I was like, okay, having like on-site handholding may have like helped those folks get across the finish line. So, there's always like a little bit of a seed of doubt of whether or not it's truly going to be able to be something, regardless of how you do it, whether it's via courses or via an accelerator, whether you're going to be able to kind of get it fully across the finish line.
Yeah, and you're right. Those people on the site are the early MVP customers, because we had to launch an MVP too. And don't
Mm-hmm.
forget that every company has to start somewhere. So we appreciate you trusting those testimonials. But yeah, like those were people in person that we handheld, but now we're all fully virtual, as you know. At the end of the day, Scott, like you did the work. I'd love to hear about your experience, like while you were in the program. Like you're obviously the one doing the work, but like what were we doing for you? Because a lot of people think that I'm working one on one with all the students and builders, but I'd love for you to tell what it's really like. You're not really working with me until the end, but we've employed an incredible team of people who are super passionate. So I'd love for you to tell people about what the experience is like.
Sure. So, yeah, as you just mentioned, there's phases that you go through from first off planning the app before you even touch FlutterFlow. Just, what's it going to look like at a high level, like architecturally and just like a user experience? Like what is the navigation going to look like? And if you've never built an app or, never used something like Bubble or anything, like it's coming from a non-tech background, like you don't even think about things that way. Like I never thought about like, oh, this screen and then that screen and then that screen, and it has to pass information or do whatever, right? So in the early phases, that was Sandro helping, oh, hey, did you think about like this particular aspect that will need to happen when a user does XYZ thing? So I think scoping all the potential features and having an MVP in that list was like a very helpful component on the front end. It helps you determine, what's going to meet the needs of the user and still, be functional and monetizable and all that good stuff, and not so complicated that you wouldn't be able to do it yourself or can't finish it in a reasonable amount of time. And then in the second phase, it's really that building phase. So, your team designs the database and things like that. And of course, there was iteration on the database as we went through the process. But yeah, I mean, it was on me to go on into the group calls and schedule one-on-one sessions. And basically I would take things as far as I could get, hit a stopping point, and either, if I didn't have a call coming up or whatever, I would transfer over and do something else that I knew I could move ahead with. And then, there are very dedicated time blocks, whether it's the one-on-one calls or the group calls, to get particular pieces of functionality built out. And that's super helpful because, like, anyone could go watch YouTube videos and figure it out. But I watched a bunch of those videos and they're not like specific enough to your use case, and they tend not to be that complicated. So if you're building anything beyond like a super basic app, I don't know that just doing it via YouTube would be very difficult.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. So were you working with Andreas or were you working with Kamish?
Andres, yeah.
Awesome. How was Andreas?
He was great. He was super helpful. He kind of explained, why we were doing something a particular way, so that I can understand, because there were multiple instances of, for example, like looping. Looping was used in multiple areas of the app, right? So once you showed me how to do it, explain why we're doing it this way, or whether it's, adding to a page state or page parameter, like those types of things, helped me extract the information that I needed to apply those lessons elsewhere.
Nice. Very cool. Very cool. Well, you did the work. We were there to help you. And you gave us a lot of feedback along the way. There's a lot of places we can improve the program too. So thank you for giving all that feedback. Cool. Let's kind of transition back into the app. So you've launched your app. You're live in the store. How does it feel to have an app that's like in the store where people can actually use it? It drives traffic. Like, what does it feel like to be that person?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty surreal for sure. I didn't think, I mean, I remember the day that I got even the test flight on my phone. I was like thrilled that like there was a working application on my phone that I built. So yeah, that was pretty crazy. But yeah, now that it's in the App Store, I don't know. I don't know that it's necessarily like hit me or sunk in fully yet, but we kind of did like a first batch where, we went out to her users, we got downloads and we got some trials and things like that, but it really gave us a good sense of feedback about, what needed to be iterated on that like MVP version, even just to make the existing feature set better, basically. And then I took that feedback, spent about a week or two, making it better and fixing some of the bugs that we found. And then relaunched like a second type version, maybe a week ago or so. But yeah, just, every morning I open the computer, check revenue cat, like, it's kind of like check Firebase analytics. Like I just love doing that every day. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. I actually would, in my old home, I had like a small TV monitor and I would just have like a Chromecast on it of just my Firebase and I would just look at it every day. So I think you should do that too. Get old TV off Facebook Marketplace and set up some dashboards. Yeah. So you said revenue cat. Are you generating revenue? You don't have to share exactly how much, but are you generating revenue?
Yeah. So we're super lucky, Ivy has the built-in following. So I think we had a really good built-in market to go after immediately. And I think you and I talked about this like earlier on as we were prepping for launch and things like that. But I would say to builders, like, think about how you're going to go to market before you go to market, because you don't want to like launch and have crickets, and at least have, it doesn't need to be 150,000 followers, right? But like having a community that, you're solving a problem for whatever the community is. I'm going to assume that most people, especially coming from a non-technical background, are going to have that community. Like that's probably what gave them the idea. But just thinking through that bit, to one, just it helps to have like some sample size of like, okay, what's converting, like especially, in the program we added Mixpanel, right? And we know that like her users out of all the people are likely to have the highest propensity to like convert, right? And even still, like looking at the areas where there's drop off or where people are, where we're not retaining or having trial conversions, we have like a large enough sample size. It's not like huge or anything. I think we have 1,000 total downloads to date in about 2 weeks. You're muted.
I'm just talking to myself. Wow. So you've had 1,000 downloads in 2 weeks.
Yes.
Wow. Very cool, man. And that's a lot higher than I think what you told me the first time we talked. So, and you're converting those people into trials. I think you said 50% of trials are converting into paid. You have your Mixpanel dashboard set up and you're tracking all that stuff?
Yeah. So actually, I recommend to folks, when you go to RevenueCat, there's a really good report that they have that they just released maybe 2 or 3 months ago on the state of apps or something like that, the state of mobile apps 2024. And they talk about a lot of the these metrics of, trial starts and paid conversion rates and all these things. And that's like what my background is. I work in tech doing that for tech companies. So that's like this type of stuff I absolutely love doing.
I actually didn't even know that. That's really cool. So you already you already kind of have a head for that.
Yeah, like that's the part of the work that like I can do all day, like doing like conversion rates and monetization, because I work in finance and there's some crossover with. So I actually support go to market in business to business software. So I'm not very familiar with consumer facing or mobile apps. I'm more working in like enterprise app space. But a lot of the, go to market, like customer acquisition costs and all that sort of stuff is all the same. And LTV and all these metrics are very similar as they are in what I do on a day-to-day basis. So just like looking at that and then being able to, you can use the steps in the process to understand like where things are maybe like going awry or what you need to like solve for in your app. And I'll give an example. I know I'm like long-winded here, but if your trial start rate isn't as high as some of the benchmarks, then something about your onboarding flow is not just demonstrating the perceived value or the value that a user should be getting, right? And then on the opposite side of the coin, if you're not converting those trials to paid users, then your product isn't good enough
100%.
to justify the price. That doesn't mean that it's not good enough. It just might be priced too high. So there's two potential components. One is just the product itself, and the other is the pricing. So I've been looking at all of that stuff and trying to like internalize it, and that's how I'm trying to think about like the next steps with that.
Very cool. No, fantastic. And now I'd love to just jump into a demo of your product. Sure. I have it open right here.
Sure.
So I will I'll kind of keep this open here. And if you can just kind of walk me through what I should be doing on my phone and kind of talk me through why you did certain things, your decision-making process, and that'd be really cool.
Yeah, so you open up here and there's a splash page. And originally this was a lot less marketing speak and very like straightforward. And, that's obviously not my specialty. That's IB's specialty and I think your specialty. So, we got on a call and roasted my whole onboarding flow to make sure that it was demonstrating that I understand, or the app, what we're solving understands what the ultimate users need. So we changed some of the language to say, hey, parenting is hard enough. Like we understand that baby-led weaning is a very hard and difficult thing to have to deal with. Maybe they're eating the chicken nuggets one day, for example, like yesterday, our baby's eating the chicken nuggets, and then today wants nothing to do with them, right? So like parenting itself is hard, and then this whole process is hard. So anyways, you go ahead and you click get started. And then you enter some information about the baby. So their name, ambitious baby, and their birthday. And then you can continue. And then
so talk to me about this step-by-step onboarding flow and like how you kind of put together a series of questions to like, I guess, personalize the experience. Kind of what were you thinking here?
Sure. So there are some considerations when as it pertains to like introducing foods to your baby, right? Like, so your baby might be allergic to things, or you might not have introduced allergens yet. So we needed to account for the fact that they might be allergic to things, and you obviously don't want to be serving those things to them. And then similarly here on this screen, you can see that there's what do they like and not like. So we're using this information not just for funsies. We're actually doing it because we actually in the meal generation phase, which you'll get to later, it actually takes the user's inputs into account, and then that helps define what goes into the meal plan.
Yeah, one thing I love that you did was like, what foods does ambitious baby like, not like? So if I put like my real baby name there, it would like personalize that. It makes me feel like I have agency over the product, and I'm building something for my baby, and I think that's good perceived value, like you were saying.
Yeah. And then this particular component relates to, how much are you feeding them per day? Um, and then how much do you want to cook? Like you might be busy and you really don't want to cook, other, and otherwise you might want to cook a lot. And, Ivy's following, she's really done a lot with, recipe content. So there is a lot of cooking and there's a lot of existing recipes in there, but we also tried to add in like really simple recipes, like just yogurt and a fruit and multiple iterations of that, or, hummus and a pita and things like that. So, we tried to take into account uh, all the factors that a parent might be thinking about when they're thinking about introducing food to their baby.
Nice. And now the moment of truth,
Yes.
the paywall.
Yes.
What have you learned about this paywall? And like, I guess talk to me about what I'm buying here.
Sure. So we started we have a hard paywall here, so that's the concept that like you can't use the app unless you pay. We have found to date, we've gotten feedback that um, the users would like to be able to try it, which I find interesting because there's a 3-day free trial. But I think there's something about users believing that like this is the moment where I'm deciding to purchase. We're still, this is something I want to continue to test and think through. But ultimately, you'll see once once we make it through the paywall that you're paying for all the functionality, which is the ability to create your own meal plan from scratch, have a meal plan generated for you, having the grocery list generated for you, and then access to all the recipes and how to cook them and all that good stuff. And we're continually adding them. So, Ivy posts recipes probably 2-3 times a week. So we're continually adding to the database and making sure there's new recipes, and then ones that meet a lot of these criteria. So like finding eggless recipes, that's something that's very difficult. So that's something we want to make sure that we're continuing to add for the babies who have, an egg allergy.
No, that's super cool. So you use BuildChip for the backend, Firestore for the database, and FlutterFlow obviously for the front end, Revenue Cat for monetization. So you got the whole stack.
Yeah.
Nice, man. I guess now to start wrapping things up, what's next? What are your goals? And where are you going to go from here now that you've graduated Dreams into Apps? You got your app in the store. I definitely want to see you around. I want you to be part of the community. We're going to mark you as a senior student. There will be more coursework that we're launching on, scaling, iterating, paid advertising, more Mixpanel stuff, acquire.com. I hope one day you look for a sale, or even you just make a cash printing app that feeds your family for life. That'd be really cool. So I guess, what are your goals here?
Yeah. I'm not wed to holding on to it for life. I have a bunch of other ideas, but I do think that we want to make this one really as good as possible. I think there's still a lot of features and functionalities that we can add to really help her users, or the users, feel like they're getting a lot of value. And there's a lot of things we've already have like a backlog of things, and it's like, what will I be able to do, and what would we need outside help for? Um, could you mute for 1 second? Sorry. Could you mute? I'll keep going. Sorry. And then, so one of the things we're really focused on at this point is we'd really love to get some guidance from like a registered dietitian that specializes in feeding babies, and create like templates, right? Like paid meal plan templates. It's like, oh, my baby is 6 months old. We're capturing their birth date in the onboarding flow. We know from 6 to 9 months, like this will be a great meal plan for your baby. So that's one thing we're looking into. Eventually, I'd love to put like Instacart or like other like grocery delivery like API functionality into it. To parents don't want to have to like run over to the grocery store, right? Like it'd be much easier if you could deliver the food to your house. And then just continuing to like iterate on the design and just the usability, and making some of the recipes easier to access and like prettier, and then even maybe having like video content on how to create things. And then, yeah, I mean, I think continuing to scale it via like organic, like we've, released it a little bit to her following a couple times, but we've already got clamoring for Android, and we're not quite yet live on Google Play Store. So that is TBD. Probably by the time this launches, we will be on Google Play Store, hopefully. Um, and then, yeah, I mean, even doing some scaling via paid advertising, like that's something I'd really like love to learn about. And now that I know all these metrics, like how can we acquire users for a reasonable price, and um, hopefully continue to sign folks up.
Yeah, awesome. No, really sweet plan. I actually was just putting together a small kind of model for us. Like,
Yeah.
If Ivy has an audience size of 150K, we can expect maybe, and these are rough numbers, like a 2% engagement rate. Say that's like, I don't know, we could say this is weekly or monthly or what have you. And we can drive 3,000 downloads, say maybe a month. And this is all just random spitball numbers, right? This could go up and down. I could completely be wrong. So if we get 3,000 downloads and you can get a trial start rate of about 30%, which is like, that's like really good for a really strong traffic channel. So I'm going to like aim high. That would mean we would get what, 900
Yeah.
trial starts. That's what, yeah, 900 trial starts. And then I think you said you're kind of hovering around a 50% trial to paid. So that would mean,
Mm-hmm.
I can do the math here. 50% of 900 is 450. And you're charging $7.99 a month?
$7.99 a
Or
month or $30 a year. Yep.
got you. So let's say price per month. Let's just go with the monthly for a second. I think you charge a lot more than $30 a year, especially if you have, Ivy's brand, her name behind it, video content. I think you charge a lot more than that. And you have to also remember that like the lifespan of your customer, unfortunately, is short, but you can play into that, right? A baby's only a baby for a small amount of time. So your price point should also reflect, that time length. Your LTVs are only going to be as long as people keep having babies, and maybe the average couple has two babies. So you might have a really short LTV there. So I would definitely think about increasing that price
Mm-hmm.
as you build more content.
Yeah.
But yeah, price per month, $8, let's say. So then we can do a quick math: 450 times $8. It's 3,600 MRR, which is solid, especially given that like I think you should be able to drive 3,000 downloads in like one viral video or like one really good post. I really think that like this number is quite low because you already said you got 1,000 downloads and you haven't rolled it out to the whole community yet, right? So
Yeah, she's only done story posts, so we haven't done static or reels yet. And then she has a Facebook page and also a baby led weaning specific, or maybe it's just motherhood in general. Not sure.
yeah, I mean those are going to print fantastic leads, especially like I know app companies like I one of our partners, Interlock Studios, they only scale their apps on organic, and one good reel they say can push 10,000 downloads just off one good reel because the algorithm is insane, right? Like they know what to push viral. So like, and especially if she has long form content that sticks on the internet for a long time, you know, I feel like mothers, especially newborn mothers, are fantastic people because for downloading apps and being customers because they're like not working, they're at home, they're researching on the computer, they might not have had a baby before, and they are willing to look for solutions. And if they see that there's a brand behind it with Ivy and then like a really cool app, they're going to be locked in and motivated to convert. So I think you're in a great market. You have a great team, and you should be able to build something awesome as long as you stick with it and stay consistent, Scott. So really stoked to be in your corner. And yeah, I think you're doing all the right things.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, we're excited.
Cool, man. Well, hey, thanks for taking the time to do this. I got nothing else for you. Is there anything else you want to share? I'll make sure to leave a link in the description of the app, but anything else you want to share?
No, I would say, if you're willing to put the work in and follow the instructions and go to all the coaching sessions and make sure you're asking questions and pushing forward, then there's no reason anyone shouldn't be able to do this.
Awesome. And then I guess my last final question is, would you recommend Dreams into Apps for builders looking to launch their app ideas?
Yeah, I mean, I always hear stories of people saying, "Oh, I've been thinking about this for a year. I've been thinking about this for this long. I've been blah blah blah. I've been doing YouTube." It's like, okay, well, do you want to do it or do you want to do it, right? Like, invest the money, invest the time. If it's a real idea that you really are passionate about and you just want to bang it out, like, I mean, I did it in like 10 to 12 weeks, right? Like, and I don't know how to code, like, very clear. Like, I don't, I mean, sure, I'm like savvy enough with like using websites and, you know, Excel and things like that. But um, if you want like a program that is going to help you through it in a very structured manner, that you don't have to like go figure it out yourself, and you want to be accelerated, which is in the name, right? Like an accelerator, then 100%. I mean, I'm certainly not aware of any other accelerators that, one, exist, and two, um, would be able to help folks with this particular stack get across the finish line as quickly as I was able to.
Awesome, Scott. I also want to say that you are probably the fastest builder to go from idea to launch.
Really?
And for that, I actually owe you a gift card. You qualified for the launch, or the just launch already rebate, which is a rebate that we give builders for launching within 12 weeks.
No way.
I'm not sure. Yeah. So I'll send you over a gift card. It'll be for a couple $100. You'll be happy.
Oh, sweet.
And yeah, you just reminded me of that. And the team did tell me. So congrats on that. You're the first one to trigger it.
Wow.
And that goes, it's not because of, it's both of us, right? It's like, you trusted us to chisel down your MVP scope. Like, there are so many builders who just keep wanting to add more and more and more and more. And like, we go into coaching calls and we say, remove this feature. You don't need it right now. Remove this feature. You don't need it. Like, just keep your eyes on the prize of getting that app into the store. We have a lot of work to do to get the app into the store. The more features you add, the more work we're adding to our plate. So
Right.
You trusted the process of chiseling it down. Every time you got on a call, Andreas told me that you were, chiseling things down. You were very receptive to it. So for that, you were rewarded. And now your users are driving your feedback, and you're doing stuff on behalf of your users rather than what you want to do for yourself.
Yeah.
So,
And real quick, I would say two resources are, one, the previous interview you just did with Nick, I believe, where he was like running his business off a Google Sheet, right? Like before he, like, that's perfect, right? And then similarly, there's a book by this guy named Noah Kagan, who, if you haven't heard about him, he's great. He has a podcast. He was an early employee at Facebook. He got fired, and then he was an early employee at Mint and Intuit. And he has this book about just like launch the thing, right? Like, it doesn't even need to be an app in the app store, right? Like, start with literally the most MVP you can possibly think of and get that user feedback, because, and I failed to mention this earlier in the interview, but Ivy's users drove the feature set. Like, they told us, I literally stack ranked what was most, we put in our stories, what would you like to see in an app that's for baby-led weaning? And we stack rank those items. And literally, if it didn't make, there was one with like 20 responses of the same thing, and no users could see each other's. This was just unprompted, like, this is what we want to see, which was grocery list, meal plan. There's a couple things that we haven't yet built, but like, they drove it for sure. And then all the feedback that we've gotten since launching, and I'm glad we did that, like, didn't iterate to the 10th degree. Like, we just put out something that's viable, like, does drive value and actually solves a portion of the need, right? And now we're seeing all these things that people are recommending to us. It's like, oh, hey, you could add this, or hey, this particular feature like isn't working exactly the way I'd want it. And you can just like continually iterate. And that's something that I struggled with in the past, but I think it's super helpful advice.
No, thank you, Scott. I really, really, really appreciate you. Thank you for everything. Stay involved. I'll be in touch with you right after this too. And thanks so much, man. Really, really excited for it.
Awesome. Thank you. Cool.